friends, this is Dr. Anatole, and we have wonderful Mike behind the camera. We haven't yet advanced to having both of us on camera or having 3 cameras and all that, but one day, with enough funding and enthusiasm, funding mostly, no, I'm just teasing, we will progress to better quality videos. So you had a comment, a thought that we want to talk about.
Sure. So we were editing a previous video that I think we have ended the title of part 1 about students and teachers and who needs whom and what needs what. And one comment you made to me was, not a personal comment, but just in general, the comment you made was that the teacher doesn't need the student. And so I kind of wanted to go into that.
Yeah, so we're talking now, it's going to be a part 2 now.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually so fundamental that if you go to a teacher who needs you, you should run away, and as fast as possible. This goes back to the original Buddha, just a legend about him. And yes, you don't like histories, but this goes there. So when Buddha got his Buddhahood, means he stopped being a person and became an enlightened being, whatever that means. One thing he realized, that he doesn't need anything, that he doesn't care, he is self-sufficient. The reason why he became self-sufficient is because he realized that he's part of nature and nature is part of him. In other words, he does not have any thought form produced nothingness in the head. In other words, that what forms the society, this ego-driven stuff, no longer sticks to him. Okay? And then, to make long story short, he met, I think there were 5 or 6 people he was traveling in the forest around in his 30s. And they saw that he was enlightened and they wanted him to give teachings. And there was a conversation which went something like that in his head. Is that I don't care, I don't want to teach, but I'm not opposed to doing good. I'm opposed to doing bad. But either I will do nothing or I'll do something good. And since I have nothing to do and I'm not hungry and I don't care whether I'm hungry, nothing really bothers me on a big fundamental level. Well, these people want me to talk, I'll talk. That's how 4 fundamental truths of Buddhism, or whatever they're called, happened according to the legend. So screw the legend and let's just talk about any teacher you come to. The whole point of a spiritual teacher is that that person is channeling God and not channeling himself.
Or the universe, or whatever.
Whatever, of course, yeah. And we shouldn't even talk about it. But the bottom line with, he has no personal interest. And teaching you would be an interest of some sort anyway. And God forbid if he's going to be has an expectation from you or from himself relative to you. If that is there, dysfunction will ensue. Always. And you have to understand that students always have some kind of emotional, physical or spiritual or intellectual quest. That's why you're coming to a teacher. Otherwise you would be enlightened Buddha, you wouldn't be interested in a teacher. So you want something. So if you want something, there is a chance that you're going to manipulate the teacher. If you're going to manipulate the teacher, that's not a problem, except that he really wouldn't be a good spiritual teacher. Inability, proof against being manipulated is a characteristic of a person of mystery. And that's what separates spiritual teacher from any other teacher. So if you can manipulate your spiritual teacher, that means that he or she is not a spiritual teacher. Now he might have a dark night and fall sick and for some couple of weeks become a little bit insufferable emotionally, but generally if your teacher does not have this kind of realization, you should not expect from him spiritual teaching. You can expect life coaching, etc.
Okay.
And that's the first installment. I'll let you respond, and then maybe we'll.
Well, I'm not sure if this is a direct response to that or to the comment you made yesterday. So, but the kind of the next piece of the puzzle for me is kind of in two pieces. One of which is, the teacher hasn't finished learning. So the teacher might not need students to learn. That's not entirely what I'm getting at. But the teacher hasn't finished learning. Otherwise, they have really nothing new to offer. For example, with you creating a new language to discuss something that has been developed over 2,000 years, but you want to say it in a different way, that's a learning
But
curve.
it's not spiritual.
No, but it's a learning curve.
Yes.
That you're doing for the benefit of other people that come along that don't want to deal with that context, but still want to go on a path. So the teacher isn't necessarily done learning, and in addition, so part two of that is the teacher might not need that particular student per se, but the teacher does need students. And so what I mean by that is, with adequate students providing energy to the teacher's motivated to do something, like you said about Buddha. So, for example, and this is, we can cut this if you want, doesn't matter. We've done more videos this week with me visiting you than you normally would do. They're not for my benefit. I know they're not for my benefit. We can talk all day and never record a thing. The videos are not for my benefit.
Well, there are, and they're not. I know what you're talking about. Let me see if I can unpack it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, in my current thinking or process, I think that the learning you're talking about is a psychological, at best psycho-spiritual. Spiritually, once you attain what I would call alignment with the universe, your journey is basically not a journey, it's just you need to maintain that alignment. You can lose it, but once you taste it, it's not really lost. In fact, if it can be lost, it means that in the first place it wasn't it, so in terms of learning, everybody learns, everybody matures. That I don't think is in relationship to the spiritual teaching. So that's why you can have a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old or whatever, a teenager, perfectly fine spiritual teacher, but his intellectual expression and his own personal emotions will likely lag behind in some form. But as an aside, keep me on track after I'm going to say this, I've seen enough 15 and 16-year-olds who were spectacular and they could teach, and there was one thing that separates them from normal 16-year-olds or 15-year-olds. I don't know why I'm stuck on these two numbers, but teenager, is that they are intuitively very well aware of their psychological development. So they do not have, they'll be respectful to you as an older person, but they will smile at you and say, you should eat less, whatever. I mean, using a silly example, but basically they can see, they have the separation between psychology and spirituality very nicely established. So they know their worth very nicely, and they also know where they are. So anytime you find someone who is rebellious, it means that they're very much attached to their emotional ego process, which is fine. And also keep in mind that someone who is a rebellious teenager may become a fully realized Buddha at 35. So this is not like, oh my God, I was a piece of garbage at 15. No, you weren't. It's just you have a different journey than, the guy who comes to my mind, several people I've met, but that Buddha boy in Nepal, who is probably now in his 20s, who did not eat or drink for months. And his elder brothers, they built a fence around that. He was basically meditating in the hole of a banyan tree, and they put several fences around him because in those countries, anytime there is a saint, they will go after that saint because they want to touch him, because they'll get healing and this and that. So he was basically protected, and of course it became a big financial affair. And but why I brought him up, aside of the obvious, is that when he was like 19 or 20, the villagers wanted him to lecture them, to teach them about life. And I almost died laughing, because what can a realized Buddha at 19 tell to villagers who are family, people with children, with normal karma and all that? And so he told them, don't quarrel, be at peace, be nice to each other. It's like, what else he's going to say? Meditate for 10 months without food? Yeah, right. That would really work.
Right.
But going back to this kind. By the way, this boy, he was under the guidance of some lama who obviously was not as great as the boy himself, but he still had enough ego strength to realize that he can learn something from people who have more experience. At least he should listen to them. He had absolutely spectacular, innate abilities that can be developed. So going back to, you need to remind me where we were.
Well, that was one part, and then the other part was that the short version of it is these videos are not for me.
Oh yeah. So well, no.
And you said they are, and they aren't.
Well, yeah. So the thing is this. Obviously, when I have someone who asks me questions, several things could happen. I naturally, we'll call it out of compassion, I come down to your level and talk to you, and you represent very consciously on my part a large group of people who I like to have around me. Okay. So when I talk to you, I am definitely talking to you, but I am definitely mindful that you're not that you're a very good representative of not everybody, but a group of people who I would like to have more around me. So I am most certainly doing this consciously.
Right.
From this point of view. Yes.
But this ties back into the teacher doesn't need the student.
Yes.
That's where I'm going with all that.
Well, in terms of whether I need you and you people, no. From financial point of view, definitely not. Personally, definitely not. And I'm going to tell you, this is a very serious thing that you're asking. Mm-hmm. And I've spent many, many years thinking about it. And one of the reasons why I got myself a PhD in computer science, of all the things, is because I wanted to have a very strong demarcation/separation between what I do spiritually and what and the money. Because if I tie up myself in yoga, meditation, spiritual classes, and put my ads in those new age magazines which proliferate in different places, well, first of all, I will quickly attract that type of crowd, and and another thing is that well, I don't want these people, and I also, the most important thing is that I reserve the right to tell anyone off anytime I want. And that's why you will see, like on this video and every other video, I have a disclaimer that this is for entertainment purposes only,
right.
Because I do not want to engage that type of mentality.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, you're still off on a tangent on this. The kicker is, if we're going full analysis of the word, a teacher teaches. So if a teacher has no one to teach, they are not teaching. And so a teacher does need students.
No, you're right on the ball. This is completely correct.
Right. That's where I'm coming.
And that's
into,
why I'm not.
That's where I'm coming into intellectual conflict with.
And that's why I'm not a teacher.
Right.
I'm not a teacher. But when you come to me, what do you see? You ask a question, answer comes. You have a recommendation, and I either take it or not. So I behave like a teacher.
You behave in reflection to me.
Right. But what I'm saying is that, how do you call this? Why do you think on my business card I say, an unknown traveler? Because I don't know who I am, and I don't want to know who I am. I'm not interested in that. I really am not. So I may, I may study history on my iPad. I may go for a walk. I may feel depressed or happy. I'm very happy to see you. People are commenting on my Russian channel that I'm happy, because I'm obviously, for me it's obvious because you're here. So I'm behaving like a normal person, which hopefully I mostly am. So that is there. But in terms of like teacher and student, I like being a teacher. But from spiritual point of view, it's not that we're in the same boat. We are, in a way. It's a co-creative experience. It's like the idea that you're somehow less than I am is a stupid idea. On a spiritual level, no. Yeah, maybe maybe I can channel God better than you. Do I really know that? I don't. And if I tell you that I do, I would be suspicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, one of my favorite lamas, he says that anytime someone says, I'm a living Buddha, I'm realized, it's almost certainly a sign that that person is bullshitting himself.
Well, that comes back to something that I've long avoided, which is, if some restaurant tells me they're number one at something, I'm usually very skeptical.
Well, it's the same thing like on Amazon. When you see reviews, if you see reviews which are straight 5, it means that it's almost certainly a fake.
Right.
Because there's always, every person sometimes messes things up. So every restaurant you go to, they mess up, and that's why they say that every surgeon needs to have a mini cemetery. Basically they need to screw up, and someone should have bad karma to be their student ward client when they put too much oil or whatever, or left a whole bunch of instruments inside your, God forbid, stomach while, which has happened, etc. So that's this is how these things go, and this is another thing, by the way. This is a very common delusion among students. Whatever that means, is to expect some kind of inordinate perfection from so-called teachers.
Well, let's pick at that for a second.
Sure.
Because students go searching for the, quote, best teacher.
Yeah.
How do they know how to find this best teacher?
Well, you're going to find the one who you deserve.
No, you are. Yeah, and you said that in part 1.
Yes.
And I don't think you're wrong about that. But, again, spiritually, I know it's different.
How to find?
In intellectual endeavors, when you go to college, right? You go to U.S. News and World Report or whatever.
Yes.
And you say, what's the best school? Or in the subject that I'm interested in, or something, because they now have a 500-page book. And you say, what's the best school for me? Sort of. And so it's this standardized published thing that doesn't actually tell you, because it doesn't know you. It just says generally, among all these schools, this school is in the top 100, this is in the top 50, blah, blah, blah. In this school, students end up graduating with jobs and prospects and blah, blah, blah. But none of that actually tells you really what's good for you. It just kind of influences what your choice is.
Well, only you can know what is good for you. And this is not a con art. It's basically because I cannot, get inside your head. Some I certainly can, but not entirely. And mistakes are possible. This is one of the reasons we were talking, a couple times, I think like 2 or 3 videos before this one, about lineages. So lineages is just a way how to reassure future students that these people are not going to exploit. So we all know very well, I'm not going to mention names, we have a very prominent guru who was a child molester. We have a very prominent guru in the US, who isn't a guru actually, who have done embezzlement, and we can go on and on about these things. So when a prominent guru has a prominent disciple and you go and study with that disciple, chances are it's not going to be really, really horrible. So it's a way to ensure that there is some quality. But going back to me before I make a big point, is that the three important teachers in my life, or four depending how you count, one of them had a lineage. Three more did not. Did they study with someone? Yeah, they did. Going back to assurances, anything external is not going to cut. So basically, you can go to a yoga studio and you may like the decor, you may like the teachers there. Does that mean that the quality is going to be good? The packaging is good, okay?
But it's you.
Yeah.
It's you engaged with it.
Right. But the problem with this is ultimately, we at the beginning of the journey, beginning in quotes, everything gets filtered through your thought forms. So, so like for example, Americans like classes. It's kind of very unattached thing. You don't have to become all devotional. You don't have to bow and touch feet and look at pictures of the teachers, etc. In the East, they don't bother with this. They would much rather do something like that. Now they kind of like the class idea too, and this kind of exposure is seems to be very nice. It's like, okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to see if this teacher is going to be my teacher. That doesn't work like that. True spiritual teacher, you will just feel a rather overwhelming desire to be around that person. Not so much around the person, but just something will just draw you in. And inevitably at the beginning that drawing is going to be weak. And then you're going to ask yourself fundamental question. What is important to me right now? And you will say, well, I can go and eat some pizza. Or I can study, computer, read poetry. Or I want to make a phone call or watch videos of someone, whatever. And what you'll find, my friend, I'm not going to mention name, is beginning, in quote, be obsessed with a certain teacher. And it's not really obsession. He is tuning into that person. He's realizing that there's something in it for that person. I'm not into, studying with just one teacher. But I'm very much into serial monogamy, which means that you meet someone who you're very much attracted to, try to get it to as deep as you can, and then eventually you may find that this is not for you anymore. You may divorce your spouse after 10 years of marriage for and if you are with a really, really good teacher, the divorce will always be amicable. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because you should never forget that it is you who is on the journey and not the teacher. In other words, whatever is important for you, without being flippant, should precede everything else. I always follow. In my life, I always follow like that. What does this means?
It means this is a good time to start wrapping it up.
We are. You guys all have a very good day. Talk to you later. Let's see how they turn this thing off.